Hi everyone, my name is Nicola Comninos and welcome to the third day of A Week in China. I'm talking to Anneli van Schoor, my godmother that lives in China and has been living there for over 10 years, and she's sharing some insights from on the ground in China, what happened during lockdown. Hello Anneli, how are you doing?
Hello Nicola, I'm well. You?
Great, thanks. I think the video is a little bit delayed, but I'm still amazed at how we can talk like this. We're not able to connect on Facebook or WhatsApp or anything. So I have WeChat loaded on my phone and people think it's the weirdest thing because we don't use WeChat here, but that's how I keep in touch with you. So Anneli, can you start by telling us how was the firm lockdown during China? Because I think it wasn't that strictly enforced until it became more of a global health crisis.
Yes, what I noticed around me, because everybody here lives in the area where I am. I'm sort of in the older part of Tongxiang. The newer part probably are different. Newer parts are different. When I talk about a community, it means like different buildings, maybe 8 stories, and a lot of apartments in these buildings. And it's quite a lot of people can live in these communities. So one morning, I looked out the window and I saw that the community where I live was being barricaded. So they put
cement blocks. What do you mean when you say barricaded?
Barricaded, yes. Because they decided that if it is this serious, they have to protect all the people living in the communities. So you must understand that there's no gate in these communities. It would be 2 or 3 blocks, or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 even, blocks of apartments. And there would not be a specific gate. There would be different entrances, but no gates. People could go in and out at different places. So obviously, how do you control these communities? So they barricaded most of all the entrances to most of the communities, especially the communities where the older people live. And in this area where I am, it's mostly older people that already maybe are on pension or something. So all the entrances were closed. One was left open. And at that open entrance, there would be people on duty, local volunteers, some policemen, people that could check the people coming in and out. They had a schedule, all the names, because in all of these communities, there was what they call a community center. It's actually the people that look after the people in these communities. Administrative things and all kinds of things that the people might need were done in this. And this is a permanent feature here. So the personnel of those community centers had to control the entrance, and the policemen could help them. So they had a schedule of everybody living in the community, where they live, how many people live there, and they would tell people that only every second day, one in the household can, or maybe 2 if it's necessary, can go out to buy food or for some emergency, maybe go to the doctor or something. And people would actually get a little card that they could take with them as a permission. And when they come back, they show it. So they could control it this way. And you cannot enter the community again if they haven't taken your temperature. Another thing that I saw it when I did some volunteering, I saw how it worked, physically how it worked. But another thing that the community centers did, they were in contact with everybody in the community. They had it on their computer. Every day they would ask people, Are you okay? Are you feeling okay? If you're not okay, please ask us to help you. So I think probably most people were covered.
Wow. So they pretty much have contact with everyone. They've got contact lists of people. I just can't imagine it. I mean, I suppose we're just not used to that type of setup. So they know who lives in that apartment block and everyone in there, and they only allowed one person per family to come out. So I mean, I think it's amazing how it was controlled, and maybe that explains why the numbers were so low. But I mean, how does that work? And I suppose that's the one question. And then the other question is, or observation, I think, is in South Africa, certainly, we have walls around our property, and many of the areas are walled. So I'm sort of deriving from what you're saying that those apartment blocks aren't necessarily walled. They don't have things like electric fencing, and that's why they had to barricade them, because there were multiple entry and exit points.
Yes.
Yeah.
Barricades, no electric fencing, no high walls around anything. It's not necessary. In the newer,
very low,
Tongxiang, where you have sort of more affluent young people living, they would have communities. They also call it communities, but it would be huge new houses. Of course, also high walls around it and everything. Not because it's not safe. It just looks nice. But they will also have one entrance. So it was easy there, quite easy there. And they also had people on duty in these places. And normally they would just take your temperature, and they would also check whether you're going out or not. But the big problem in the whole of China, I suppose, because I've been to many places and I've seen how people live in many provinces, is these older areas, and Wuhan had a lot of them, where older people live, with places where you can go out and come in, and how do you make sure people are safe there? Because actually the whole idea was to keep people safe. It's not to fence people in, it's to make sure that they're safe. In the community setting, these communities, because they're a permanent feature there. They are always there. They work there. It's a permanent job. So of course they would know who lives there. So this is not being done for the virus crisis. They are already a functioning organization inside a community. So they could just mobilize them to do more than they usually do.
Wow, that's amazing. That reminds me sort of like of in our African cultures, we've got like the chief of the village, and he could mobilize the village. Yeah.
Yes. It could. In small places, in villages in China, of course, they have the same thing. There is a village head, and it would be the village head that's responsible for this kind of. The problem is in urban China. I mean, this doesn't exist anymore. So you have to have a sort of community chief, or whatever you would call that, or organization that look after the people.
Wow, sure. That's so interesting, Anneli. So weren't you scared when they started barricading? What were the thoughts that gone through your head, or did it actually give you some sense of comfort that you've been protected better?
I was never scared. Never. I was interested, for sure. I already understood that this was a problem, a huge crisis, because I watched the news and I got some information from the Tongxiang Foreign Affairs Department. Of course, this was going to be a very big problem. So, and I already heard on the news that they are going to isolate communities. I didn't expect to see it around me, especially my community, opposite the school. I never expected it, but when it went up, I thought, oh, they're doing it here too. No, I wasn't scared. Definitely not.
Wow. So just to give me a sense, I mean, there are millions of people that live in China. I mean, do you know the number off the top of your head?
How many people in China? 1.4 billion.
Wow.
Or more.
Wow. So the police force must be massive to be able to roll out such a big lockdown initiative.
It's actually not the police force that rolled it out. It was instructions from the top, from the government, because they had also a COVID-19 task force.
Yeah.
That. Instructions down to the different provinces, and then the provinces sent it down to the districts and the cities and whatever. And in the city, the local government have to make a plan. And that's one thing that I also think I should make sure that people understand in other countries. The central government wouldn't tell everybody in China, you have to do this like exactly this. They would leave a lot of freedom to the local governments. They give them the basics, and they say, this is what you're supposed to achieve. And then the local governments would have a plan. So you would find in China that different cities, different places have different regulations and rules. You'll remember that I said to you, I heard afterwards that Zhejiang was the strictest province. So other provinces, I know about Sichuan, the province where I went with my friend for her brother's wedding, because she had to stay there.
Oh,
she wanted to come back. And no, don't come back. You're not allowed to come back. So she had to stay there. And she said the restrictions were not that, it was not that strict there. But Zhejiang is definitely a province that are quite strict with most regulations.
Okay.
So it's the local government that decide exactly what will happen here. And it's not the police that enforce everything. It's these community centers in every community that would mostly enforce the regulations. But maybe there is a local policemen that also help with the control.
Okay.
What I did see here is that the police were, traffic police probably, I'm not very sure which police, they were patrolling the streets. I saw them often on their motorbikes, like two together, patrolling twice a day or 3 times a day. They would just patrol the streets, just to make sure everything works. But there were not a lot of police in the entrance, at the entrances of the buildings. It's mostly the community workers. That's why I could volunteer. I mean, anybody could do that.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I find it interesting that you said that the school actually told your friend that she couldn't come back. So it also sounds like they mobilized and enabled and implemented the regulations through the employers. So the school also made sure that
Yes.
you checked where you had traveled to at the start, etc.
Because the local government told all the government employees, and mostly the schools are also either government or semi-government employees. They told them and all the businesses that you must make sure that people that work for you are not, or you must make sure of the safety of the people that work for you. That's why the school also asked me, and they contacted me again often, and are you okay? Do you feel okay? Where have you been? Please don't go out. Please, sort of just enforcing or confirming the rules. That's why they told my friend to come back, because most of the public transport was stopped, and the trains, there's lots of these bullet trains, we call them, the high-speed rail, crisscross China. You know, you've been here. You can go anywhere now. So it means that if people, and most people use them now, even more than flights, much more than flights, because they're really convenient and they're always on time. They go everywhere. So you can't allow all these trains to go all over China. Of course, you'll spread the virus. That's why. I mean, she couldn't, because we went with high-speed rail, and most of the trains didn't work anymore. So, and flights were stopped. So she could probably find one train, maybe, but they didn't want her to come back, because we wanted to keep people out. They also told us, don't go out of your city, don't go out of your area, don't go out of Zhejiang.
Okay. Wow, sure. Fascinating, Anneli. Very, very fascinating. Thanks so much for your time. I know it's late your side, so thanks so much for talking to me so late in the night. I'll chat to you again tomorrow. Bye.
Bye-bye.